Hello and welcome back to the Curios Cast. This week we're talking about Bitcoin and the Silk Road. Yo, quickly, look at this. You'll like this, George. I forgot to show you this. This, right, is Gina got this for me. It is a £40 million shark. £40 million. It's not 40. Well, it's just £40 million. I'm thinking about currency. No, 40 million year old shark tooth, like fossilised.
That's pretty mad.
It's mad, isn't it? I mean, I'll show it to your camera.
Sorry, Rob, I farted on your intro.
Yeah, I know you farted, yeah. I got that and one that's not embedded in its thing as well.
So I remember getting those.
It could be a lie, but
at SeaWorld, or Sea Life Centre at Southend.
Yeah, they did have shark teeth, didn't they? Yeah.
But I'm guessing they were just normal shark teeth. They weren't like 40 million year old shark teeth because they just had them in like a bucket that you could pick them out of.
Yeah, I remember going on holiday as a kid and like the little stalls down the market would have stuff for tourists, and I'd always you get like a little shark tooth necklace or something as an 8-year-old boy. It was so cool.
Yeah,
that's radical. Then.
Yeah, that is radical.
Well, is that encased in rock, Rob?
It's like because that's like the fossil thing that it was sort of found in, and that's its.
Yeah, hold it up to that camera so I can't see it.
Yeah, hold on so you can. I forget which camera I'm using here. It's that's the thing. It's still
nice.
Yeah. It could not be 40 million years old, but apparently is.
We should get it analysed.
You got to trust them.
Yeah, get it.
Well, I'm happy. I'm happy to just trust that it is. It's fine. Isn't it? Anyway,
tell us about Bitcoin.
This episode is not about 40 million year old sharks. No.
Yeah. I've never heard of it. What is Bitcoin?
What is Bitcoin? Oh, well. I mean, I'm not specifically going to talk about Bitcoin, really. It just makes for a better clickbaity title, doesn't it? Well, no, it is kind of about Bitcoin. What I really wanted to talk about, right? So. Shout out to Reply All, right? I was listening to the Reply All podcast. Obviously, they could do with our shout outs,
yeah,
small
they don't
time.
even exist anymore.
There's like this little small time podcast that used to exist. But I was inspired by listening to one of those, right? They were doing a thing about this girl on there that had bought some. Say girl on there, a famous New York journalist, New York Times journalist or something. But she'd remembered how she'd bought some drugs off the dark web and then. As like an experiment, and then kind of forgot about it, and thought she might have had some change, and their whole episode was trying to work out how to find lost Bitcoin kind of thing. But it made me think, right? And I was like, I swear, I used to know a guy. I swear he used to do that, and he used to do that back in like years ago, like early days, and it just got me thinking. I was like. So I messaged him and he was like, yeah, I fucking did, yeah. So I had a chat with him basically. So, but for those who don't know, so the Silk Road was, are you guys familiar with the Silk Road?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, some of our listeners might not be, I'm sure probably most are, but the Silk Road was essentially an online marketplace for drugs. So it was started in 2011, it ran till about 2013, but it just looked like eBay pretty much, but you went on there and rather than old shoes and bikes, I was trying to think what was on eBay, Hoovers. It was just drugs, like all manner of drugs, but it was like it wasn't just it was drugs. It was like listings and ratings. People would go on there and say this is a 5-star drug seller with some awesome drugs, and the whole sort of idea of it was like a philosophy. Like the guy that came up with it, pseudonym Dread Pirate Roberts, eventually found out to be Ross Ulbricht, who's now serving like crazy time in prison for it.
That could so be your name, Dread Pirate Roberts.
I know, yeah, it could be, couldn't it? It's similarly my name.
Yeah, your name's Rob and you have dreads.
Apparently, it was actually.
I don't know, you being in a van, you're kind of like a nomad, like a pirate. You're just that's your vessel.
Could be my nickname, couldn't it? That was a pretty badass nickname. But no, it was actually taken from the film The Princess Bride. Have you seen that?
No.
Great film.
It's actually pretty funny, yeah. Like I remember when someone being a fucking fragile male, having a fragile male ego, when you hear about that, I'm like, I ain't gonna watch a film with The Princess Bride. But it's actually fucking amazing, yeah. But the main character in there is called the Dread Pirate Roberts, and it's supposedly and it's like a moving name, like you are there is no one Dread Pirate Roberts. It's meant to be like the name for the kind of noble outlaw type character, I believe.
The Grey Fox from Oblivion, Tom.
I don't know what that is, but okay.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. But anyway.
It's an even more niche way of explaining it.
Yeah. Anyway, I digress. But that was why it was called the Dread Park Robbers, anyway. But so yeah, you could go on there and you'd buy all your fucking drugs. But yeah, the whole philosophy was that you didn't have to go to a drug dealer, buy fuck knows what mixed with fuck knows what. It wasn't just meant to be like for some dude to get rich off it. He had a proper like ideal about it and was like, it was like a libertarian type ideal, like drugs should be legal. You shouldn't have to go to a street corner to buy them. You shouldn't have to meet a drug dealer down some dodgy thing, risking injury and buying shit and risking yourself there. You bought like good drugs and they were sent to your fucking house. And like for a long while, it worked and it worked amazing. And the police just could not work out how the fuck to shut it down. They couldn't work out who it was behind it. You basically accessed it through the dark web through a browser called Tor, which is like a means that you use to access the dark web. And you'd get on there, and there it was. But basically, I got chatting to a mate because I remembered that, he used to get shit bought off the internet and sent. I knew because like a couple of my mates at the time, actually, he sent it to their house, and like a couple of times. We'll talk about that in a bit. But so I chatted to him and he was like, I did used to do it. And he was actually doing it from pretty much its inception. Like he found out about it in the early days. And it's funny because after chatting to him, it kind of feels like if you were to like drugs, Tom, this is the methods he went to do it was the sort of thing I could see you doing. Like he said, basically, so there was like two types of people on Silk Road. There was just like novices, and these guys would just like buy Bitcoin. So at the time as well, bearing in mind 2011, when was Bitcoin first? It must have been just before that.
2009.
2009, okay, yeah. So it's still really early days of Bitcoin. You could, it was hard to buy, it wasn't straightforward. It's like now you can go on any cryptocurrency exchange and just buy it. It's like buy it with your fucking bank card,
Yeah.
Back then you sort of could, but it was just a bit more difficult. That reminds me, actually, one thing I was going to sort of preface this with was like, the idea, actually, no, maybe I'll say it at the end. Just the idea that like, early Bitcoin transactions and just like amusing about how much they were. That was kind of the thing I was thinking. It was like, he must have spent some money on some Bitcoin. But yeah, we'll get to that.
People used to throw all sorts.
The first, the one that most people know was the first ever Bitcoin transaction, real world transaction anyway, was 10,000 Bitcoin for 2 pizzas. 10,000 Bitcoin for 2 pizzas. So as of
current price of a Bitcoin,
22,000, I think, as of today. Last time I checked.
Change, isn't it? Really?
It says in this thing, when I searched that pizza thing just because I knew I was going to say that. It says as of April 2021, that'd be $600 million. So it might have gone. Actually, might have gone a little bit down by now, but
hopefully they were good pizzas.
Yeah. Apparently, the guy like just says like, I don't regret it. I mean, you have to say that, didn't you? Really? Like, what the fuck are you gonna say? I mean, maybe he has some other Bitcoin. I didn't actually. I just heard this. But anyway, so yeah, there were a few ways to buy Bitcoin. He said most novices on the Silk Road in the early days, if it was just a guy going on there who just wanted to buy some weed or something, they might have used this thing called Ping, but you essentially had to sign up with a username, and a driving license and stuff like that. So if you bought your Bitcoin, it could be traced back to you, really. Like, so the Bitcoin transactions are anonymous, but because we all have accounts and stuff like that, and your average crypto trader, you can find out who's done it now, I'm sure. But the actual transaction path is technically anonymous. So it was possible to do it that way. So what he said was like, the other type of people were like the elite, and that was people like him, right? So he was just well into being like super on top and like hiding it. So there was like a forum that everyone chatted on, again, within Tor. So this is how he kind of got to know all this kind of information. You'd be on there. He said the name of it, but I can't remember now. And it was something I hadn't heard of anyway. It was like some Tor forum, I imagine it was just like, I picture it kind of like an early 4chan, 8chan type.
Yeah, just so basic
thread.
looking, just a message board.
Big message board. Yeah, just literally a board, people chatting. And everyone should have these different usernames on there. And that is actually where you get a lot of information. The Dread Pirate Roberts used to post on this forum as well. He'd go on there and chat. But yeah, you'd go on there and you chat with all these people, and you'd find, he sort of learnt the ways of doing it with a bit more discreetly. And so he would basically, being one of these like elite guys, right? He would go to a website that was called localbitcoins.com. I meant to actually check to see, I wonder if it still exists, but it was sort of like an early Bitcoin exchange, I guess. No, it doesn't exist. Oh, it does still exist. It does still exist. Buy your Bitcoins online.
Buy and sell Bitcoin everywhere, near you or around the globe.
It looks really next, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I guess it's not anyway. But that was like a really early one. But what you used to be able to do with that is it was Bitcoin traders on there, that would buy and sell Bitcoin, and you could do it directly from them. So you could buy Bitcoin with a cash deposit. So he would basically like arrange with these guys. He'd be like, I want 500 quid's worth of Bitcoin. And they would say, all right, cool. Here's my account number and sort code. He'd basically you'd have to sort of chat and find a trader through these ways that would be willing to do this. Obviously not all of them. A lot of them were like, why do you want to do it this way? And he'd be like, I just do, like whatever. Yeah. He'd have to sort of sweet talk them. And I guess eventually one of them would just, whatever, not care enough to just turn the other way and be like, whatever, I'm still going to make money. So he'd buy this Bitcoin and they'd say, right, here's my account number and sort code. And he'd have like 4 hours and he'd just have to go to the bank and put this Bitcoin in put physical cash into the bank. And he'd do it so they would then send it directly to the person he was going to buy off. Yeah. So he would give them their wallet address and say, I want my Bitcoin deposited in this address. Yeah. So it just there was no trace to his name or anything whatsoever.
Smart.
Yeah, it's pretty mad, isn't it? And he said there was like an app called like Signal, which I think is still an app now. Signal. Yeah, a lot. It's like the most secure encrypted kind of app. And so
you chat. Resurgence recently, isn't it?
Yeah, apparently, yeah, with all the privacy worries and stuff. Yeah. But he would chat to the brokers and stuff on there, and he'd chat to other users and stuff on there that he became friendly with. But he also eventually found ways where like you do a thing that was called like tumbling. So if you obviously just deposited from your one wallet and you sent that to someone, or likewise they sent money to you, it was like really obvious, that it had come from that one wallet. So these like traders, what they would do, he eventually found it was like a company, he said, that would just. It's funny that companies existed to do this. The company, you would give them your Bitcoin, and they would. It was called like tumbling. They would basically make it seem like it had come from all these different areas and IP addresses and stuff like that before it got to them. So it would do it both ways. So eventually he used to just do that as well from his, so he'd get the money into his wallet that way so he could see it in his wallet. But he said he'd be sitting at work. He was working up in London at the time. So he'd kind of do all this while he was at work. And he'd like be sitting there, and someone through this like forums told him that you can do like, because it's all through the blockchain, isn't it? So fucking blockchain, whatever the fuck that means. I won't try and make an attempt at explaining the blockchain. If you know, whatever, good luck to you. Well done. You're a better man than I. But yeah, you could see all the transactions you can see on the blockchain. But he said someone showed him there was like websites you could look at to see the transaction happening. Because he said obviously sometimes you just go and give this £500 to just this account number, and he wouldn't know it was actually going to happen or come to him or come direct to the person he was supposed to be sending it to. So there was this website that showed it happening, and you could see it being verified and moved through these things. So he'd just be sat at work, just like checking his app to see, gradually this money moving through the blockchain. He said it wasn't like an instant thing then either. It could take a few hours, but you'd see the paths of it going on and going through these tumbling things as well. And it's mad, isn't it?
Yeah, that's mad.
Mad that you can see that. Yeah. I would have thought that wouldn't.
Well,
maybe
I'm confusing that with a tumbling thing. Maybe the point of that was you couldn't do that, but he would definitely. He said there was a way of tracking it that you could see it at least.
It'd be visible.
You didn't know where. You couldn't see the things in between, but you could see a sort of path of it coming, just to sort of put your mind at ease as like, it's on its way to me, and then be like, when it finally gets to your wallet, be like, yeah, thank fuck it's here.
Yeah.
I forgot to sort of ask about that, and because he definitely mentioned he did have a wallet at some point, so he must have also eventually, I think when he learned about the tumbling thing, he stopped doing it cash straight to vendor. He then learned that he could do that, and avoid it being his name or anything like that, I guess.
Smart. In COVID times, cashless. He was ahead of the curve.
But the thing is, right, so he was like, he wasn't just using it to just buy a couple of, a few things. He was buying like 100 pills at a time, or like 5 bags of Ket, and like he was buying relative, it's small time really, but it was like, what do you call, like, low level, mid-level corner boys, as they might say on The Wire. It was like, he was selling this to other people.
Okay,
but,
so he was the area distributor.
Kind of, yeah, I suppose. Yeah. But like, it wasn't that big time. He'd probably do this like. I mean, we worked out. He reckons he did maybe like 10 to 15 times in the first couple of years. So that's not that often.
No, still a fair bit, like once every couple of months.
Yeah,
or so,
that's 100 odd pills. So like, but like at the time, you'd get there was 100 pills for like 300 quid, and he'd then sell them for like a tenner a pill. So it was pretty good business, I suppose. But he pretty much just used it for life, and it doesn't really have anything to show for it now, It wasn't like Breaking Bad, it wasn't like he was trying to do anything with it. It was just spending money.
Mm. Yeah, I was going to ask, like, if he shared his sort of total earnings, or any rough idea of how much money he made, or in terms of Bitcoin.
Well, I worked it out. I'm gonna kind of.
You're going to give us the breakdown.
Yeah, I'm gonna like climax in that really.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But like
that's
in terms of
hear Rob climax, then I don't know what is.
But in terms of like money he made, like he didn't really end up with any money. Like he's got a few things to show for it that you bought, but it mostly just like allowed him to have a pretty good time.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a few of those pills got lost along the way as well.
Yeah.
I mean, like I say, and I know about a couple of them because a couple of my friends at the time that they agreed to have them, because this is what we laughed about as well. At the time, he was living at his parents' house, so it was like he was doing all this mad shit at his parents, but like he obviously was like, I can't just get posted to my fucking parents' house, so he had to ask like friends. He'd always ask, I'm doing this thing. Do you think you can get it? Shipped to your house, whatever. And eventually, he finds, obviously, I'll give you a couple of them, whatever. And I remember my friends, and I got them sent there. They did it a few times, and eventually I was like, they were getting like a couple for them. And I remember being like, I forgot to say this to him on the chat actually, because or her. I've already said it to him, haven't I? Like, eventually, like, I think they stopped doing it because I was like, why are you only getting like 2 for these 100? Like you should ask for like 5 or like 10, like. And I think maybe he said, all right, have 5 eventually, but it was mainly really because I wanted one. But I did have one, and I would say they were fucking 10 out of 10. They're probably some of the best pills I've ever had. They were fucking amazing. And that's what he said, he was happily selling for 10 because they were just incredible. Like it wasn't like you bought them and there was some like just rubbish stuff. They were like the craziest, like, it was all really high quality, because if you sold bad shit, everyone would just like go on and bomb the ratings, and it wasn't just on the so you'd have like a rating like you would on eBay on the actual Silk Road, but also you'd be in the forums and the dealers and the vendors, they called them, not dealers, they'd be talking in the forums, and people would talk them up and say, excellent transaction, very discreet, arrived on time,
I like this. I love a good bit of like efficiency,
Yeah,
it was a good machine we had working.
It was a good machine, and it was a good system. And for like the first couple of years, it was amazing.
So let me just get it right. So he was getting them ordering stuff on the Silk Road, and then he was distributing it to other dealers or people he knew.
Just like minorly, like probably people he knew and shit.
Yeah, mates and stuff.
So he wasn't then selling it again on the Silk Road. Once it came to him, he was just
So there'd be like these big boys on the Silk Road. I think that was mostly what it was. Like the guys on the Silk Road you buy it off would be pretty big time. At least being, I don't suppose you could buy. I should have asked him that actually. I don't suppose you could buy that small an amount.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's probably just if you're going on there and going through all this hassle to get this Bitcoin, so there is, untraceable, and then you want to buy some drugs, you're not just going to go and buy 2 pills because that's what you want for the weekend.
Yeah,
like you're going to have to buy in bulk, right?
Up.
Yeah,
I think it was generally. I think the general consensus is you'd buy like maybe 50 minimum, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't know, but yeah. But he, I mean, when they arrived, they'd come in like, I remember the couple times I saw them, it was like a CD case. So it was like, it's just got like a CD. It was a time when you could get CDs. It wasn't unusual to receive a CD in the post. But it was, and it opened up the CD and inside it, it fucking was. I remember the first time we did it, it was like, my friends lived in a flat. So it was in like the communal mail area. And it wasn't their name, so it was like some random name on it. So like, if anything, you could plead ignorance, communal mail went in the wrong, I don't know, whatever. So it was pretty good, really. So you just go and open it. I remember going down there with them, opening up the fucking communal postbox and being like, fucking jokes. Like, it fucking worked. Like, it's crazy.
So it would have a completely random name on it, always on the parcel.
Yeah, I suppose you could put, you could ask them to put whatever the fuck you wanted,
so and then, does it just get sent through the normal post?
Yeah, through the normal fucking post. But the craziest thing, he said that the whole times he did it, they all got through. Like, I'm sure like some got stopped, because I actually watched a documentary about it earlier to kind of gear me up for this. There's a good BBC documentary on the Silk Road. If anyone wants to check it out, just Google BBC Silk Road. Shout out to the BBC. Again, they need it. And they talk about right at the start about how, mainly in America, I guess, as well, they're talking about in America in this, but they more and more drugs were coming through the mail and they were seizing them. It was kind of like, it wasn't completely unusual to see some drugs coming through the mail before this. But then all of a sudden, the amount coming through, they noticed, was like going up wildly, And I'm sure some got seized, I know actually, funnily enough, I went to Amsterdam a few times, George. And I remember I went once when I was at uni, and we just thought we'd just see if we can do it. Like we had some left. We heard that you can like post some back.
You've told me the story before, I think.
One of my mates was out there with once went to do it. He went to go and post, and he asked for he thought I put it in a bubble. What do you call it? Like a padded envelope.
Yeah.
And he went to a shop and was like, "Can I buy a padded envelope?" Obviously, he was young. He must have looked like a fucking stoner as well. And the guy was like, "You want to send a weed?" And he was like, Don't buy the padded envelope if you send a weed. They know you send a weed." And he was like,
was there a Welsh guy?
I was thinking it was a Jamaican there.
Yeah, shout out to Lynn for my impression there. They were like, he was like, buy a birthday card, make it all small, send it a birthday card.
Brilliant. That's brilliant. Like, so he was giving advice.
Yeah, he was giving advice. So that's what we tried. That's what we tried, right? So I bought this birthday card. I sent it to my house at uni. Didn't fucking come through. Never came through or whatever. Another time, my mate rang me and he was like, "I'm in Amsterdam and I've got some fucking, I've bought too much weed." You normally do when you go to Amsterdam, especially when you're younger. You just get all crazy and buy too much and then have to like give it away or whatever. So he was like, "I'll try and send you some back if you want." I was like, "Well, fuck it, go on in." And I was actually, it's bad really. I was living at my nan's house at the time, like looking after it for her. And I asked like while she was in a home. And they didn't want to go and empty, so I was in there. Yeah. And my mate rang me, and I was like, "Yeah, fuck it, yeah, go on, send me to see if it comes through." I thought it probably won't fucking come through anyway, And then I forgot about it. It was maybe like a week, maybe a couple of weeks had passed, maybe a week, I don't know. And I went away for the night or something, or a couple of days I must have gone away for. So my mum went down there because obviously it wasn't like my house, So my mum was just checking in on the house, and there was mail there, so she was like going to check the mail, whatever. And it was again, he'd addressed it to just some random name. And she was like, "Well, I know that's not, my nan it's been sent to. I know she's lived there like 40 years. Who the fuck's this meant to be?" So she opened it,
No.
And it fucking, it fucking came through, didn't it? One fucking time I knew it came through.
Brilliant.
And she opened it and it obviously was just like, like apparently like called my sister and like her now husband was like boyfriend at the time and was like, he's got drugs smuggled in, like what are we going to do? What am I going to do with it? And he said he was coming around expecting it to be like, some large quantity, and it was like it must have been like 2 joints probably, like like ground up in this thing. And he was like, "Oh fuck yeah." I'll just throw it in the bin, like, and just got it and just poured it down the toilet.
Yeah.
I was thinking this, like, I fucking said, come on, you could have sorted me out. You could have just gone, yes,
I'll get rid of it. Yeah,
yes, Rob's mum, I'll get rid of it. Stuck it in your fucking, give it back to me, man. You could have done me a solid there. Absolute. Anyway, absolute brother-in-law to be, like, G there. He could have he could have pulled, couldn't he? Yeah, what's the fucking chances?
Try it now, but it's probably not a good idea to say, let's try and smuggle drugs into the UK on the podcast. I mean, here, it's legal. So,
yeah. Well,
we'll just smuggle ourselves to the Netherlands.
To the Netherlands. Yeah.
Well, let's just say everything I just said allegedly.
Yeah, in a video.
That clears you from it, innit? In a video, yeah. This is all just comedy. This is just a fictional stories for laughs.
It's just a bit, we're just characters.
Yeah. Yeah, what was I? Anyway, yeah. So like he basically he'd go in on this like cryptography in order to like cover his tracks. He said to the point where this made me think of you, especially Tom. So like as well as all that other shit, like and like the kind of forum dive in to work it all out, and he like really took it serious to like not get caught. He'd have like a virtual computer. The way he accessed Tor and the way he did everything and his wallet eventually, was all on this virtual computer, which was on a USB stick. So he had Linux installed on a USB stick and he would put that into his laptop and that's how he'd launch it. And then he didn't do anything for his actual laptop. And then he'd take that stick, which was all encrypted as well, and he'd take that and he'd like hide it in like behind his like skirting board. He was really laughing when he was telling me. He was like they were going to fucking bust in and like search for it. But then the funny thing about it as well is eventually he got kind of blasé with it, like to the point where so yeah, by the way, he carried on past 2013. So after 2013, the Silk Road got shut down. Big famous case. I'm sure you can read about that if you want. But what happened is it didn't end. All that basically happened was this splint. It was basically become the Wild West. It was actually the classic like drug enforcement agency. That they shut down this one thing, or there was actually all to an extent regulated. Like
self-regulated,
and
it was like the free market in action. Basically.
And at least it had this kind of ideal and philosophy behind it. In the end, the guy kind of supposedly, allegedly, they'd never actually done him for this. Did like a murder for hire. They didn't actually do it. It turned out it was the FBI behind it, kind of coaxing him into it a little bit. And he basically said, killed a guy.
There's a good YouTube documentary about it. If I can remember the name of it, I will put it in the description of this episode.
Yeah, cool. But
there's no promises on that because I'll probably forget to do it. But there, if you search his name on YouTube, was it Ross Ulbricht? Isn't it?
Ross Ulbricht, yeah.
It will come up. It's got a few million views, so you should
check that out as well. But yeah, basically, like the long and short of it was, at least that supposedly, one could argue that it ended up not being as idealistic as he imagined, but the idea was at least there. And then after that, it kind of became a free for all and a bit of a Wild West, where like there were just all these different versions.
Everyone's
Silk Road
trying to be the next Silk Road.
Yeah,
right?
Silk Road Back from the Dead. Yeah,
whereas you had everyone in one place, so it could be maintained, like the order could be maintained. You just got like you say, it all splintered off and
free for, and you didn't know who, and you didn't really so much know who to trust and who was what. And but by the by, people still used it, and there was at least this kind of forum idea that still happened, I guess, and people would try and do this rating thing. So he kept on doing it for a while. So he did it up until about 2017. He did it for like 6 years. But the funny thing, he said, like, he got blasé enough about it to the point where, because he'd order it, and because he'd be ordering it, it'd come from like America and stuff, I guess, or like Amsterdam or Holland rather, like it wasn't coming from the UK necessarily. I don't think it ever really did. So it said it'd take like 2-3 weeks to come sometimes. So he'd sort of just order it something. Once he had like a deal in place with a mate, he'd just go like, it's coming. And eventually you might even forget and he'd be like, oh, by the way, there's another one coming to your house. And he did this once with my mates. And was like, this is by the way, this is on its way. And he mentioned them, like, I don't live there anymore. Like, I fucking moved out like last week. And they were like, it was like, fuck. There's a fucking thing on the way. So they had to basically go back and be like, because it'd been like a couple of weeks maybe, so it wasn't like beyond weird to be like, I've got some mail left behind, can I come collect my mail? So they had to go back and do that, and sure enough, fucking there it was, like the final case of 100 pills or whatever the fuck. But he said he got to the point where eventually, like he said, because none of them ever got stopped, right? To all the different friends he'd done it to, it was like, so I'm just going to start getting it fucking sent to home. Like, fuck it. You know? So he said, and he was laughing because he went to all this effort with the USB stick and hiding it behind a skateboard. Then eventually he was just getting sent to his house, you know, like with his name, because he had to do it to his name to his house. So his parents didn't just open it, you know? So he's like, after all that, they could have just followed it to me. Stupid, really. But,
I thought he was going to say he started logging in like public libraries.
Oh, right, no, it's going next level.
Conference calls.
Well, the funny thing is how they actually how they actually caught the guy eventually, amongst a few other sort of triangulations. But the main guy, the first guy that worked out who the Dread Pirate Roberts was, it was because he sort of thought the funny thing is he just used like Google search to find him, like, and that was all like a bit of a joke. I was like, you just Googled it. He basically looked at he set Google back to search like 2010 to see if anyone mentioned the Silk Road in 2010. Like, are there any mentions on the internet of Silk Road before it was up? And there basically was, and it was like from some user in some forum about Bitcoin thing, first saying like, wouldn't it be good if there was this thing or something like that? I was trying to sort of talking about it before it was a thing. And then there was like another post from a guy saying, hey guys, there's this awesome thing. You should check this out. You know, and it was like,
and that was it.
And it was him obviously trying to get people onto it in the early days, because no one would have been on it. You had to go on the normal web to get people to get onto this fucking thing. And it turned out it was him, yeah. And he signed up for that username with like rossallbrick@gmail.com. Literally after all that fucking shit he did.
And he sign in with Facebook button.
Yeah, basically after all that shit he did, he forgot to do that. It's mad, isn't it, really?
I mean, that's just, you wouldn't even think of doing that, would you?
Yeah, we didn't know it was going to blow up.
At the time, I guess, yeah, exactly. And by the time it did, he probably forgot he'd done this early advertising and just didn't think about it.
I forget all sorts of shit. Like, I've got a Dutch number, obviously moving here, and there's still stuff now that
exactly. I mean, that's a great fucking pull, really, isn't it? Like, it sounds simple when you think about it now, but like to have that click to then, great. Anyway, interesting story. But we were sort of talking about this as well. Like, it is mad that, like, I mean, we'll get onto the amount that you might have had by now, but I was like, it is kind of cool that you did it though, because you sort of took part in a piece of history, really, a moment in time that will go down in history as like especially at least a moment when you're talking about the history of the internet. It was a movement, and like, though technically you can still go on there and do it. Like I actually had I'm gonna call him an acquaintance. I wouldn't go as far to say a mate, right? But a guy I know, an acquaintance.
You know who you are if you're listening.
yeah, fuck it out. Oh, mate, fuck it.
Well, if he was a mate, he's not now.
Well, I mean, I don't see him that often. He's an acquaintance, right? He's a fucking wreckhead.
Is it Paul Lawford?
Right, no. But he knows him, right? I was round one of my good friends' houses.
Narrowing it down.
Yeah. I was round one of my good friends' house. Where everyone that knows who this is, right? I was round one of my good friends' houses one day, and we get this text on his phone saying, "Call me an ambulance." And we were like, "What? Like, what the fuck?" Like, bear in mind, it's a pretty rare, like, it's not a guy we see all the time. He's especially rare now. But even then, this was years back. Even then, it was still pretty rare to like. Yeah. It wasn't like a local regular friend. You might see him when we're out with other friends. You know, I'm surprised he even had his number. You know, because call me an ambulance. We're like, what? And to be honest, our first thoughts were like, we tried ringing him, no answer. We were like, and my mate was like, what do I do then? We were like, well, I guess call an ambulance. You know, like
where
call him a fucking
we don't know where this guy lives.
Yeah. Well, no, we did know where he lives, and he was like, "Well, let's drive round there," because it was only around the corner. He's like, we'll fucking call an ambulance. Better do, and we'll drive round there. So we all jump in the car. He rings an ambulance, and they're like, he said to where to, and they were like, "Yeah, someone else has already called one. You know, like we're on the way." And he was like, "All right, fuck." We drive around there. To be honest, we were expecting to find him stabbed from like a drug dealer or something. You know, we was thinking we're going to come around, he's going to be there stabbed because from some drug deal gone wrong, or he's owed someone money or something. He's that kind of guy. And we get to the back and we get down there and we look for him and we're like shouting.
Fucking Paul Lawford.
Yeah, we're shouting for him like, "Way!" And then we hear him from the back garden. We're like, "What?" And we look down, he sees his feet on the floor, and I thought, fuck, this is it. He's stabbed, you know. And he's on the floor like fucking foaming in his mouth. It was crazy. And I was like, fucking hell, you're all right? And he's like, fucking And basically it turns out, right, he'd bought some coke off the dark web, And it was just rocket fuel. Like, there was nothing wrong with it. It was just fucking at levels. And he just banged it. Like, he'd taken the day off work. He'd gone to go. Well, in fact, he told his mum, you know, she drops him at the station in his suit. He then, like, pretends to get on a train, walks home because he knew his shit from the dark web had arrived. So, like, 9 a.m. See, it was about 9:30. We got this phone call, I think. Maybe like 10 a.m. He's fucking... We were the first ones there as well, but we beat the ambulance. And he's there, and he's like, thanks for coming. And he's like, it turned out he'd just gone through his phone, texting, like, everyone. So, like, not long after we were there, like, his, like, aunt arrived. But the trouble with this was, right? So he'd gone home and done this, and he'd got, like... He was like foaming at the mouth. He'd basically just banged it too hard. Like, thought it was just, like, regular... cocaine that he was used to, but it wasn't. It was this insane, like, pure fucking shit. Yeah. And it just fucked him up, like, and he didn't know how to handle it. And he thought he was dying, and he was just, like, glitching out on the floor. And
that's mad that he, like, still had the like the know-how, or he was still with it enough to message everyone.
He was wired.
Did he even know what he was doing?
Well, what I never understood is why he didn't just call an ambulance. Like, why? Surely it's much harder to text, call me an ambulance. Yeah. I really never got that. Anyway, there wasn't the time to sort of ask him then and there.
Speed dial.
Fucking the thing is, no, because what it turns out he'd done, he'd gone through his phone book texting. So, like, my mate, I won't say his full name, but it's AA, right? So he's first of his fucking phone book. And then not long after that, his Uncle Alan or something, whatever it was, turns up, you know, like, and the worst thing is it looked like we'd been there, you know, like, doing it with him. Because, you know, we're this guy's fucking mates as far as he knows, turning up, so he's giving us looks like we're like, we just came round here, we got their text too. Yeah. And he's sort of looking at us like, yeah, all right, fucking, you're all right. You know, you wreckheads all around here with him, like. Yeah. And then the ambulance came, and they basically just, like, sat him in the ambulance and were like, you're just too fucked up, aren't you, mate? Like, you're fine. Like, you know, like, give him a once over, and we're just like, fucking chill out. You know, like, don't waste ambulance time again, please. You're all right. Yeah. You know, it was ridiculous. Anyway.
And that was 9:30 in the morning?
It was early, yeah. It was early in the morning. Like,
was he still in his suit when you got round there?
I can't remember. I don't think so. I think I would have remembered that. That'd be funny, wouldn't it? But anyway, that's the sort of shit you get off the dark web, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. But, so basically, like, yeah, we were all right. So after all this shit, like, we was chatting. Yeah, part of it in the history, I was saying it was interesting. So he doesn't regret it. But when I told him the total, he was kind of like, fuck me. Because I actually messaged him this today, and he was like, I do feel a bit sick about that. So I did a real conservative estimate, right? Yeah. To just, like, not try and, like, blow it up. So, like, and I worked it out. What I tried to do was, because the price between 2011 and 2013 was pretty, like, radically different to what it was after that. You know, It went up about, it was like $3 at the start of 2011. And it got to about 100 at the end of 2013, okay? So I kind of took an average for, like, his first couple of years of doing it. And he reckons that's when he did the least, you know, because he was getting into it. He said he did about probably 10 to 15. So I called it 10 transactions, right? So roughly, actually, no, I made an average of about...
George, do you want to guess what the total is going to be? Like,
well, let me give you all... I won't give you the total. Let me give you all the...
Yeah, give me the inventory.
So, well, I did the average from the first 2 years, and the average was about $80 a Bitcoin, and he reckons he did about 10 transactions. So again, a conservative estimate ran it down to about 10 in the first 2 years. After that, again, conservatively, we estimated he reckons maybe as many as 30, but I rounded it down to like 20, just to be conservative, and I kind of got an average price of like $400, because by the end of 2017 it was like 1,000. At the start it was like 100, so I averaged it. It was like $420.
Well, now I'm not guessing. I'm just trying to do really quick maths in my head.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. All right. Yeah,
$420 for a year.
Well, basically, right. So yeah, rather than just trying to fucking guess.
Because I can't do it. I failed maths 3 times. So.
Well, like if you just before.
I'm going to say.
No, it'd be way more than that.
About
5
900. I'm going to say between 950 to 1.2 million.
All right. Well, what I worked it out to be, again, I was trying to be as bottom estimate, you know, to
make him not feel as bad.
Yeah, in the first 2 years, he probably used about 80 Bitcoin in the first 2 years. Like, again, it could have been more, could have been less, but I feel like it was probably more.
So that's like,
because
how much is that? Like
80 times 30,000.
Well, that's a fucking lot.
240,000. Oh no, wait.
Wait, well, don't work it out yet because the overall amount ain't much more. In the rest of the years, he probably used about 23 Bitcoin. I worked out a massive conservative estimate, probably more than that, really, because he remembers using like 5-6 Bitcoin for a transaction sometimes. But anyway, so a conservative estimate, I made it about 100 odd Bitcoin, which I calculated to be about 2.5 million. If it had just kept
all that money spent on drugs, if he just held it until now.
If I was him, I'd feel so sick.
He does feel a bit sick. Yeah. But like, he also was like, what I could have also done was just the money I made from it, I could have just put that all back in a wallet and just kept it. Imagine if I did that.
Yeah.
Like,
the thing is,
there was no way of knowing that Bitcoin.
Yeah. Well, he said at the time it was just. Yeah, he said it wasn't like you didn't think anything of it. It was money. All it was a means to do this. That's pretty much all anyone used it for, really. Like, let's talk about this, like, you know, the pizza transaction now, but not really. And to be honest, all anyone's ever really actually used it for is buying drugs. Like,
and also, like, when you see these stories about people who bought Bitcoin when it was $1 and they spent it all on pizza or they spent it on drugs, and people calculate, if they'd just held it until now, it would be worth $2.5 million. It's like, okay, well, if they did hold it, if they saw it as an investment back then, they would have bought it at $1, and then they would have sold when it was at $100. Way before that. Or they would have sold when it was at $10. They were like, okay, I've 10 times my money, I'm selling. They wouldn't have held through till it being $100 or $1,000, $10,000, $60,000. Like, there's no way you would have sold. Yeah. Maybe there would have been a point where once, like, you see it just keeps going, and when you get those massive spikes. But if you buy something when it's at like $1, $2, $3, and then it gets to 20, 30, 40, it is tempting to sell. Like, you will sell that.
Yeah.
So
imagine that.
A lot of these stories,
I always think that.
the most heartbreaking ones are the ones that I don't know if you're going to talk about it, but the people who have Bitcoin but can't access it.
Yeah, well, I was going to talk about that because he said there was a period in time where he forgot his wallet ID, but he managed to get back into it. I was like, imagine if you had not got into it then and then managed to get back into it now or something like that, you know, like, and he was like, yeah, fuck. But we spoke about that guy that threw away a hard drive, didn't he? And he reckons there's like hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin on it. He's trying to pay the council to let him dig it up. And he's saying to him, he's found like a firm that will offer to do like the excavation, and they're going to take like 75% of what they find. He only wants like 20%, or
I mean, even 20%
something like that.
Is,
and he was going to give the council like 20%. It was that's what he's going to do. It was something like that. He was going to take 10%. He was going to give the council like 10, 20, and these firms are going to take like 50 or whether that's not the right math.
Is it actually going to go ahead then? Is this going to happen?
No, the council won't do it. The council just like, no.
I hate the council.
It's bullshit. What they got to lose out of that?
Yeah.
I mean, like a huge environmental hazard to the whole of the county, like is what they're saying. But
fuck the environment. We'll just buy another one for the Bitcoin.
Well, that's what they're saying. But why another? Yeah.
But there's also that guy who has, I don't know how much he has, but he has a huge amount of Bitcoin. And he has it on an offline wallet or whatever, but he can't remember the password to get in.
He's got like 2 more tries, isn't he?
Yeah, you only get 10 guesses of the password before all your Bitcoin's gone. You're locked out, and he's got 3 guesses left.
That's unreal, isn't it? That's like some sort of something from a film, like a dystopian film.
It is, isn't it? That's fucked.
Yeah.
There are like companies that specialise in trying to find people's wallets and stuff, aren't there? And like find hidden Bitcoin. I can't remember the percentages, but there's a huge percentage of Bitcoin that is supposedly just unaccounted for.
Yeah.
I did read about as well. There's a thing that actually fairly recently, right? I think it was 2020. So a part of this, you know, when they took down the Silk Road, they seized a shit. All the Bitcoin from it was seized. And that's just a different story actually. But yeah, the Bitcoin was seized, and there was a guy. They auctioned it off. This is like, you know, like when they seize assets.
Yeah.
They were just like, it's just fucking worthless shit, whatever. They auctioned it off. Some guy bought like 30,000 Bitcoin. And he bought it at like a discount as well. And he was like just an investor guy. And I'm pretty sure he held it, and it's billions. But there's another thing, right? So only recently, there was Silk Road Bitcoins worth 1 billion changed hands after 7 years.
Wow.
So after it got shut down in 2013, there was an account, a wallet, where it just lay dormant, and people have been kind of looking at it since on forums and stuff like that, people have been like watching it and wondering if anything's going to happen for it. And they reckon that maybe it's possible that some people hacked it because they knew the wallet ID and stuff like that. But either way, for the first time in like 70 years, it moved from one wallet to another one. And some people reckon it was.
Can you see, they're visible then? The wallets are visible.
Yeah, and you can kind of see on the blockchain that it's moved from one to another, and that's kind of it. And
right, okay.
And if you don't know the wallet ID, there'd be like no way of the chances of working out would be like nothing. But
I guess it got well known, and
because they know the wallet ID, and supposedly they do, and it got spread about. Some people reckon that it is Ross Ulbricht's, wallet, and he somehow maybe from prison decided he worked out to move from one wallet to the next. So it doesn't seem that likely.
Yeah.
It could also be hackers. It could just be some other big vendor at the time, or, and they just tried to wait for it to cool off and wait for it says in the article, like a slow news day to fucking
so that
that's awful.
move it.
That's stressing me out.
It's mad, isn't
it? That can't access his wallet. That's worse.
Yeah, so
that is worse than having knowing that you had a winning lottery combination that you didn't play.
It is worse because at least
because it's still there. It's still physically within your reach.
I just looked it up, and he's actually tried again, like once more since I last heard about it. So he's done 8 guesses. So, this guy, he got paid 7,002 Bitcoin 10 years ago to make to make an explainer video about how cryptocurrency works. So he obviously knew about cryptocurrency. Like, he was probably one of these people who did know it was going to be worth something. And it says he wrote down the password on a bit of paper that he misplaced. So it's not even like he was like, oh, remember that. He probably knew. He was probably smart enough to make a really secure password. Like, he probably knew the smart thing to do is be really safe with this, make a big, long, complicated password and write it down. And, although you wouldn't even try guessing then, would you? But he's tried 8 guesses and he's only got 2 left before that Bitcoin that is worth $220 million is gone.
Jesus.
Surely in that situation there must be a way, or there must be he could hire people that if he gave them enough information, like you get criminal profilers that profile criminals, and they say, this person is between the ages of 20 and 25, they're right-handed. They've got testicles between 4 centimeters and 12 inches. All that bullshit that they can somehow pull from all the
apparently
evidence.
it's a bit of a pseudoscience, really.
But anyway, maybe he could hire people, or I don't know, but teams of I don't know what
to work out what password he would have made.
Yeah, so to get like a pool of potential passwords, if he can provide them with as much information as possible.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe that's what he's tried. Maybe that is what he's doing. Maybe that's why he's down to 8.
Maybe.
It says...
that's terrible. That's horrible. That's making me feel sick.
Yeah,
it makes me feel a bit anxious.
It says his name's Thomas. It says Thomas seems to be taking away a positive lesson. He says, it was actually a really big milestone in my life where, like, I sort of realised how I was going to define my self-worth going forward. It wasn't going to be how much money I have in the bank. He said,
you have to say that, don't you?
Well, you have to say that. You can't define yourself by how much money you have in the bank, because you knew you could have 200 million and you don't.
Fuck, man, yeah.
Oh, well, poor guy.
Deep. On that note, we should probably call it a day. But yeah, that was the story, really. Oh yeah, there was one final bit of the story, actually, which I thought was quite funny. Because it's still you can still do these sort of things on the internet. You can still buy drugs on the internet. At the start of like the pandemic, he thought, fuck it. I wonder if you can, I'm going to get on the dark web and give it a little go again and just get some shit for myself before we get into lockdown. And bought a load of stuff, and it never actually came because of all the pandemic shit happening.
Yeah.
And then because there are all these like mad websites competing, they were basically like, they do like DDoS attacks on each other. And so the website that he'd used, or the vendor that he'd used, got like shut down by these other people. So we couldn't even message him. About 5 months later, he managed to message him. I guess probably because it was lockdown, he was bored. He'd messaged him a lot. Eventually, he did manage to get through to him somehow. He came back online, and they were like, "Oh right, yeah, fucking." Obviously, we had trouble, and we had trouble like sending shit out because of all the more stuff was getting seized than usual because of all the posts, more posts. I don't know. So they went fuck it, and they sent it again. About a month or so later, it was like mid-lockdown, it arrived, and he had like, and it was like a fucking page of acid,
package.
like a page of acid, and like 3 bags of ket. and then he ended up fucking having a baby, so he just didn't do it. Obviously, he's still got a load of it now. It's just like, I don't fucking need this now.
There you go. If we'll leave his credentials in the description.
If you want to follow that guy, link in the description.
Might be listening now, just tripping balls.
Page of acid.
Yeah, mad, isn't it? Anyway.
Was it like A5?
No, it's probably very small. Like you get like these tiny little segments
A5,
of it, don't you?
Which is bigger actually? Is it
A5's actually smaller. It probably was A5.
So like the A3 is bigger. Okay, so imagine if it was like an A3 sheet of acid.
Yeah, fuck that.
Like the motorway.
An
A road.
That was a lame joke.
That was shit.
That's almost on my level of shit joke.
Yeah, it was. All right, yeah, thanks for listening. That was the fucking Silk Road by me.
That was good.
Rob's guide to the
by
Silk Road.
a guy I know.
Good bit of journalism there.
You've always got a good story, especially when it comes to drugs or the seedy side of life, Rob.
You always know a guy as well.
Yeah. Rob is I know a guy.
I know a guy. Yeah.
Or
just like chatting to people.
Driving a car.
I mean, I could be making all this shit up as well. Like, I could just be a serial fucking liar.
Oh, we can just make up stories.
It's all part of the excitement. You know,
I'm not that fucking. I'm not creative enough to come up with this shit.
Yeah.
I've also got a way of remembering shit, because I think probably as well, there's people that like really know me from like uni and stuff. They'll be like, this. Now I haven't seen them in a while. It's novel to hear one of the same stories again. But like, you spend too long with me, you're like, yeah, but this one again. I've heard this one.
Yeah.
Oh, you're telling the one about? Yeah, I know. Yeah. So I need some fresh. It was nice to have a fresh story for once. This one was fresh to me, really. So.
Funky fresh.
Hope everyone enjoyed.
It's always good in this format as well, you know.
Yeah, there you go.
Format.
Fresh story.
You're going international. You're going from the UK, potentially North America, Uruguay,
definitely South America,
and around Europe.
Big ups. Anyone listening to anywhere other, anyone that is listening in anywhere other than the UK, please message us and say hi. That would be awesome.
Yeah. Either leave a review and just say hi from your country or area of the world.
Or a comment.
Email
on the
us,
socials.
tweet us, anything.
I used to say this all the time, especially in the first couple of episodes. You know, we had listeners in Malawi and Israel and all sorts of places. None of them ever fucking messaged me. So,
or is people listening with VPNs somehow?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
maybe it's just Lynn. Like, logging with VPNs.
All right, cool. Anyway, thanks for that.
See you next week.
Good one, Rob. Enjoyed
Peace.
it. Bye.